Hello, everyone. My name is Kwong. I'm a corrosion scientist at LEaC Shield, and today we're going to talk about pinhole leaks, why they happen, and what you can do about them. So, to introduce pinhole leaks, we're going to talk about the corrosion problem. Now, when it comes to leaks, you're probably quite familiar if you live in a condo or high rise, or if you're a property manager. Perhaps you're probably watching that because the title caught your eye. Now, you're going to experience pinhole leaks and corrosion most often in your risers or recirc lines. That's just where they're most concentrated, but they can happen anywhere in your piping system. Now, often what will happen is that you'll see them, you'll get a plumber to fix them, and then you just move on and you wait for the next one. But the problem with that is that the leak is a signal of something going on in your pipe. It's a signal that there's a systemic deterioration of the pipe, and it's happening without you even knowing. So this leads us to the main point of the discussion. The leak is a symptom. Just like pain is a symptom, right? The leak is a symptom and corrosion is the problem. Now, thankfully, we understand corrosion quite well. It's been studied for hundreds of years. And what corrosion is it's the chemical degradation of a material, usually a metal, but by this definition, polymers like PEX can also technically corrode. Now, corrosion starts as soon as the pipe is in contact with water. Now, there's a number of factors that affect corrosion, such as the water chemistry, things like pH and what's in the water, as well as the flow conditions. They can enhance or inhibit corrosion. But the end result is that eventually unprotected pipe will fail. And this is not uniform across the building. You can't predict where it will happen. But what you will see is the pinhole leaks and the water damage, as you can see by those images below of the pinhole leaks on that elbow. And that's really the result of corrosion. And it will happen without fail unless you do something about it. Now, talking about corrosion, this is a big issue in Canada. A lot of our buildings, they've been well built, but they're getting older. And as a result, Chubb Insurance says that non-weather internal water damage is the number one source of interior property damage. Now, depending if your building is newer, right, you're probably a low risk, but corrosion is happening. And as you get to the 20, 30, 40-year range, what's going to happen is that your risk for failure of pipe material and of joints, that's going to increase drastically. And so usually the useful life of piping is anywhere from 30 to 35 years. And if you're pushing over that, then you're really at risk of experiencing pinhole leaks and potentially considering pipe replacement. So let's talk about what's actually happening in your pipes. So this is the aqueous corrosion of copper pipe, aqueous meaning by water. And essentially what happens on a molecular level, and this is a simplified description, but you have things in the water like dissolved oxygen and chlorides from disinfectant, and they're called dissolved oxidants. They really like electrons. And when they are in the vicinity of metallic pipe, what they like to do is they like to steal electrons or charge off of the atoms in the copper pipe. Now, this is not so important, but really what is the concern is once copper has its electrons ripped off of it, it's no longer stable within the rest of the metal matrix. And so it's going to leave. You're losing the metal. And you can see you'll see these pits starting to form because the copper is physically leaving. And so where is it going? Well, it has two pathways it can go. So the first pathway is the copper can dissolve into the water. And what you'll see is the pipe will remain shiny. And where does that copper go? Well, you're drinking the copper, or it'll go down the drain. So this is not a desirable option because it increases the copper content, and especially if a building's older, it's highly recommended to test the copper levels since 2 parts per million is the maximum allowable concentration and by Health Canada. Now, in rare cases in domestic piping, You can have copper react near the surface to form a metal oxide, and the metal oxide can evolve over time. But really, this option is highly unlikely in constant flowing water conditions, since this is a slow process, and you're really not going to have this occur. You're going to have most of the copper leave, and it's going to go into your drinking water. Now, what we found to be the most effective option is something that many municipalities already use for their own distribution piping, but it's an NSF60 corrosion inhibitor. So, a Health Canada approved food safe corrosion inhibitor, which is a natural mineral and sodium silicate. What it will do is it's actually going to pick up all that copper. It'll pick up copper, it'll pick up iron, it'll pick up lead, it will bind with it, and it will form this really, really nice ceramic coating on the inside of your pipe. And this technology has been around for hundreds of years. And what it does is it forms this ceramic coating, and it reduces the heavy metal content that you are consuming in your water. Now, how does it protect the pipes underneath? Well, there's a few ways. So first of all, on the left, the film is electrically insulating. So any dissolved oxidants that want to rip off electrons from the film, they will not be able to do that because it will act as a barrier electronically for corrosion, while still not reducing thermal efficiency. Now, second really important point is that film is non-porous. And this is a real image we took of a film, one of ours that we had in a building. And the film has no defects, right? So that cracking, that's just from the vacuum, from the electron microscope we used. But the film has no defects, so nothing can get to the underlying copper through the film, and the copper cannot escape the film. So you're actually halting the copper from being released, and you're saving the integrity of the piping. Now, because you're forming a film, you may wonder, is the film going to restrict flow or cause scale or anything like that? Well, the technology has been well refined, and basically we've calculated that this film is self-limiting in thickness, and the thickness that it grows to, this is a 2-year-old sample, is 20 microns. So to put that in context, that's about the same thickness as one strand of silk. So it's a very, very thin film. It's not going to continue to grow on itself. And that's because it actually needs corrosion to happen in order to grow. And in the case that the film is damaged by debris or flowing water through erosion, thankfully, this film is self-healing. So this program is a continuous treatment program. And so any silica that sees a defect, it's going to go and bind, and it's going to fill up that defect, protecting all of your domestic piping from corrosion. Now, we don't want to just tell you this works. This is one of our case studies that we've done. So before the treatment using N-sodium silicate, there was this building in London. And in 2014, they were averaging about 1 pinhole leak a month. And it was about $1,000 to repair each leak. And that was just the service cost. That didn't have to do with if there was water damage or to redo the finishes, such as drywall. So this board came to us. They said, look, we're spending a lot of money on pinhole leaks. And they were considering pipe replacement at approximately $1.5 million. So a pretty big expense. Now, the real concern was as well, their copper levels were quite high. They were about half of the maximum acceptable concentration by Health Canada. So they were measured at 0.9 milligrams per liter. And this is the testing they did before we came to them. Now, we put our N-sodium silicate treatment program in, and the results speak for themselves. So there was a 99% reduction in leaks since we went in. And the copper levels, this was really shocking, was that the copper levels reduced by almost 99%. So they did their own testing, and they reported to us that the copper was less than 0.1 parts per million or milligrams per liter after the treatment. And to date, these numbers actually have increased, but last time we checked in, there was about $135,000 in prevented leaks. and they were able to save as well in their capital reserve fund since pipe replacement is no longer needed in that building. So the total savings is about $500,000, and that's without the pipe replacement that they had to spend. So this product is very effective, and we have a number of case studies highlighting that. And so we want to thank ACMO. Again, my name is Kwong. I'm a master corrosion and materials scientist, and we love to help you manage your leaks, manage your water and your corrosion. And again, so N-sodium silicate is probably the best way to do so. It's not a coating. It's a continuous chemical treatment program. And we've done this for over 30 years, and we have a number of certified experts. So we're very thankful. And so please feel free to reach out to myself. My email's there, or at our website, and we'd be more than happy to offer assistance and a free site visit.